Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining today's Boutique Hotel News webinar. It's our final webinar of the year, and what a year it has been. But today we're going to be casting our thoughts to the future. We're going to be exploring some key themes, topics, and trends that we believe are going to shape the boutique lifestyle and luxury hotel sector in the years to come. My name's Eloise Hanson. I'm the editor of Boutique Hotel News, and we're an online trade publication which covers the global boutique lifestyle and luxury hotel industry. Today's episode sponsor is Agilysys, a cloud-based hospitality software company. We do have Matthew Prosser on the call today, who is going to be sharing further insights about one of our key trends. So I will hand over to Matthew in a moment, who can provide a more detailed introduction to Agilysys. But for now, the company details have been popped into the chat for you to learn more. So today's webinar will run a little different from usual. We have 5 trends that we would like to explore more about today, and we're going to spend 10 minutes on each of those trends, where I will speak to an industry leader. If you do have any questions, I suggest you act quick and you submit those questions using the Q&A buttons at the bottom of your screen, and I'll get round to asking those if we have time. And this webinar is being recorded, and everybody will receive a copy of that recording within 2 days' time. So here's an overview of who I'm going to be speaking with later on today. I'll ask each of them to introduce themselves as and when we get round to their specific trends. But here's, as you can see, our fantastic lineup for today. So let's kick off. And I want to begin by talking to Matthew about real-time insights powered by AI. Matthew, welcome to the webinar. But first, could you please provide a brief introduction to Agilysys and yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Eloise, and thank you once again for inviting me on these webinars. They're always great content and really exciting to be part of. But yes, let me just give you a quick minute on Agilysys. Agilysys is a global company with its roots firmly implanted in the USA. We design, create, and develop hospitality products that deliver what we call high return hospitality for our customers. We achieve this by developing interactions that digitizes and tailors both guest personalization and operator experiences, and that results in the ability to monetize and ultimately generate higher profitability. We serve all verticals of hospitality and are honored to work with some of the most prestigious and recognized brands around the world. Our ecosystem or platform of modernized and intuitive hotel solutions offers a consistent look and feel throughout. We also aim to be the best of breed, and therefore we also offer a hybrid approach for clients who may wish to retain certain solutions but desire to operate within the Agilysys ecosystem. Quick introduction, hopefully that helps.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Matthew. So I am going to dive straight in because I know that Agilysys has been incredibly busy this year experimenting with AI. So to kick off, Matthew, could you please provide an update of what has actually been happening behind the scenes when you are looking at these AI-powered operational solutions?
Yeah, I will. And I thought what would be worthwhile doing in the first instance is actually talking about something that we don't necessarily always share with our customers. And you know, AI is a really exciting area to immerse ourselves in. But firstly, you know, I want to share with you what we do as an organization internally that helps us leverage AI within our own day-to-day works, that in turn provides the foundations for all the fun stuff we create for our clients. You know, and this spans anything from coding, which ultimately drives our own internal efficiencies. I mean, you know, recently we measured and had recognized that those AI orientated efforts within our own coding had driven efficiencies, well, upwards of 35% improvement in terms of utilization of the team. And when we talk about coding, we think about, you know, people's immediate thoughts tend to go to, well, we'll reduce the bugs and everything along those lines. But and that is important, right? But it also means we can code at a pace and velocity that eliminates those human inconsistencies and really deliver something that's ultimately special in the way in which we develop our own product. Away from coding, the entire organization embraces and leverages features, for example, Microsoft Copilot. We ensure that as staff and as ambassadors for the business, we become more knowledgeable, we become more efficient, and also sharper in probably all aspects of our working lives. AI is definitely alive and kicking 24/7 in the Agilysys world, and that's another benefit of AI. We can all be home while AI continues to work hard, and it's very much part of our future, and it continues to expand and improve. And I think that's very important to note, in addition to what we then have the opportunity of delivering to our customers today. And in terms of our products, to reap the rewards and benefits of AI, we had to get the fundamentals right. And this started with the development of that modern cloud native platform that I referenced a minute ago. You cannot underestimate the importance of a modern architectured platform to future-proof your AI needs now and into the future. Legacy products, old products are not going to cut it anymore. But, before I delve deeper, it kind of like a small example, we're introducing AI-driven help buttons into our products. Something that actually sounds quite simple, but again, because it's cloud native, it allows us to ensure all of our customers can have access to AI-orientated help buttons that then drives solutions and information in a much quicker and, again, efficient way. What else is there to say? Well, for anyone doing their research, and again, if I begin going into a bit more detail, anyone doing their research today, typing into ChatGPT or any of the other AI platforms out there, when we look at what hotels are trying to achieve, it pretty much covers areas such as personalized recommendations, chatbots, virtual assistant, smart rooms, revenue management, predictive maintenance, and even housekeeping optimization. But for me, I'm going to share with you our own particular efforts that really alter the mindset and shifts us all into a new era of metrics that we must adopt if we want to operate successful and profitable hotels. We wanted, as a business, to go, I guess, beyond the room, all right? And we wanted to focus on the guest, all right? This is the future. This is a new era of hospitality. Let's focus on that individual that's always walked through the door for the last 500 years and not potentially the room that they perhaps spend little time in. And in addition to that, through creating a new metric called revenue per available guest rather than revenue per available room, we also wanted to focus absolutely on the real-time capabilities, all right? And by doing that, it allowed us to tap into that or have that emotional connection with the guest. We've all probably felt it in our consumer lives, whether we be in a hotel, in a theme park, in a retail environment. There's no better time than that in the moment, real-time emotional connection to, leverage the opportunity for guests to be convinced to part with their money, ultimately. And that's what ultimately we are striving to achieve. And it was interesting. We did a report recently. We've actually done quite a few reports in the last 18 months, but 82% of executives recognized the need to move away from that revenue per available room and consider that revenue per available guest metric for the future. And in addition, 72% recognized the need to invest in their technology stack to achieve this. So what it showed was there's still a lot of hoteliers out there today that perhaps don't have the capability to drive that future need, but have that desire to do that. All right. I'm happy to go into detail at this moment in time, Eloise. Would you like me to carry on?
Yeah, no, please do. Go into detail about what that looks like.
So in terms of our sort of AI-driven innovations, I guess the most important ingredient is data. All right. Without the data, nothing's going to happen. All right. Because that's what we want AI to do. We want that to crunch that data at a pace that we have no opportunity to do so and provide meaningful results through that number crunching. And as we embarked on our initiatives around AI, we began with a focus on one of our products. And that particular product was our SPA application, again, used in many spas globally around the world. And we introduced AI conversation ordering. All right. And that allowed guests to engage at any time to book treatments and activities. So again, if we think about that 24/7 always on capability, we wanted to provide to guests the opportunity that they could engage, book treatments at a time that was of their choosing. And obviously from the operator's perspective or hotelier's perspective, being able to provide, endless supply of individuals virtually orientated, of course, that could engage and help them along their journey. But of course, what that then did was it leveraged AI to support the not just the bookings, but we also then looked at the further aspects in terms of, well, how can we make other products efficient? So not only did we have the ability to provide that conversation ordering, but we also wanted to maximize the revenue potential. All right. And there was two areas of doing that. Yes, we had the dynamic pricing capability that people could argue that has been around for a long, long time and perhaps was, a predecessor of AI in some respects. But we also wanted to ensure that when we did upsell, we wanted to offer the right product at the right time, at the right price to the right guest. All right. And all of those three interconnecting subjects were really important to be able to deliver on that capability within our product. And our next step was to address what is called in the spa industry white space. And white space basically is the gaps in between scheduling that can sometimes be a real challenge for, spa directors to close out on. It could be 15 minutes, could be 20 minutes, but over the course of a year, could add to hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of lost business. And through some of the work that we've done, we coined and perhaps we're a bit cheeky in stealing the iconic London Tube phrase, mind the gap. So if we could fill the gap, mind the gap, then we could maximize that potential. And if we combine that with not just the conversational ordering, the dynamic pricing, the ability to sell our most profitable items at the best times of the day to the right people. If we ensured that through, again, AI-driven initiatives, we could close out that white space. So the schedule for the spa managers would look like a dream in terms of every conceivable space filled up. We were absolutely delivering something very special to our operators. And all of that feature and function and capability could then also, as we begin to become more involved across our ecosystem, could then transcend all of our other products as well with the same philosophies. But to have all of those in one place, all crunching behind the scenes, was really clever stuff, to be honest. And we put that under a banner that we call Guest Sense AI. So all of our AI initiatives are under this banner called Guest Sense AI. One of the things that we've even taken forward to some of our PMS products is to actually reconsider the way in which we may approach our the way in which our guests, I should say, our customers' guests check in pre-stay. And again, we're all very much familiar with the upgrade message that pops up, and maybe there's a small cost for the hotel to pay to a third party to have that. But how about tailoring it and personalizing it to the actual specific individual that's now seeing this message come up on the screen? How should we look at the data that consists within their profile to understand how many times have they stayed? How many times have they accepted an upgrade? What rooms have they gone for? What price did they pay? And have all of this deliver a specific tailored message to the customer that 99.9% of the time we're going to be pretty certain they're going to accept. All right. And that's again really compelling. And again, all of these efficiencies are really helping drive certainly some of our USPs that we have within our products, and is really providing a lot of interest to our customers. So yes, there's a lot of activity going on behind the scenes. Now, finally, I also wanted to share with you something that we've done internally, which is again slightly left field, but something that I think in time will come more to production. But we also took a subset of data, and we used this data using AI to determine and score against existing historical guest profile information. Right. So this isn't in our products right now, but it's probably evidence of what we're doing behind the scenes, aside from what I've just talked about previously. So we took this data, we looked at the historical guest profile information, and we wanted to provide information to the operators in a real-time fashion that allowed them to make decisions based on this data. And what that data was, it was returning results reflecting where in-house guests are more likely to invest or spend their money. And it provided this information on a percentage ranking basis, i.e. the likelihood of Matthew investing in a meal in the restaurant, a treatment in the spa,
Bottle of wine,
whatever it is. And what was the likelihood of that individual accepting that request and then spending that money? Now, we all know when we stay in a hotel, we have that emotional part to play in how we enjoy our stay or our weekend, and we do spend additional money, and that's secondary revenue streams for the customer. But what else are we missing and leaving on the table? And what we found out through crunching this data, that the results showed that we left an additional 10% of revenue on the table that had not even been tapped into. And of course, never ever leave money on the table. If we can have AI drive better efficiencies and providing that information to the hotel operator to make those informed decisions, to either engage with that customer dynamically, maybe through notification, or God forbid in today's world, actually approach and have a conversation. All right, the data was there to ensure that the likelihood of that conversion happening was very, very high. And we're definitely seeing some advancements, some really exciting capabilities within our products that our customers are beginning to really warm to. So some examples of what we've done behind the scenes, and some examples of what's filtering into our product, but overall underpinned by the fact that this organization, the Agilysys organization, is leveraging AI in its own day-to-day needs to deliver the products we need to deliver to the customer. And that's really important. So end-to-end, ability to tap into AI.
Thanks, Matthew. That's a brilliant overview. And I want to politely finish up there, because you've touched on revenue streams. And I think that the next trend that we're going to be talking about is a perfect example of where that innovation is necessary. So thank you, Matthew. Appreciate your time and look forward to seeing these AI products roll out into the future.
Okay,
so let's move on to the second trend. And I would like to welcome Andrew from Ennismore into the webinar. Andrew, welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much. Yeah, very well, thank you. We're still Travel Tuesday being yesterday, so we're very much still basking in that somewhat.
Well, Andrew, we're going to be talking about innovation with ancillary revenues. Before we dive in, can you please provide just a quick intro to yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I am VP of Brand Marketing specifically for Disloyalty at Ennismore, which is our travel and food membership. For those of you who haven't checked it out yet, make sure you do, because ultimately what you can do is get up to 50% off hotel stays, 10% off food and drink, a free tea or coffee or any barista made drink every single day. And ultimately it's all about pushing people out of their comfort zones and trying something new.
I've certainly seen all the amazing offers that Ennismore has been popping into my inbox over the last couple of days with the crazy Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Travel Tuesday weekend we have just had. Let's kick off, Andrew. Why is now the right time to be innovative with ancillary revenue generation?
Well, I think it's a good question, in the sense that ultimately we can all sit here and just carry on with what we're doing, but that's not really going to shift the needle, right? I think ultimately Ennismore, for those of you who know us, have always been at the forefront of driving change and I suppose challenging convention within the industry as one of the fastest or the fastest growing lifestyle hospitality company. We removed check-in and check-out times with flexi time at the Hoxton, and we changed how work is done within hospitality by introducing a 4-day week at 25 hours, for example. But ultimately, in terms of like why now is the right time, I think it's because all of these and all of the changes that we've made have been driven by people, whether they're by our guests, whether they're by our team, whether it's the planet more broadly in terms of sustainability choices. This is all about considering their needs and their desires, I think, with a future-facing ethos, right? I think ultimately, there are so many choices on offer in terms of where to stay, dine, or drink. It's a necessity to stand out. I think ultimately anywhere can pour you a G&T or give you a bed for the night, but only certain hotels will actually, I think, meet those needs. And ultimately, one of the benefits of meeting those needs, I think, and thinking a little bit differently is introducing the opportunity for ancillary revenue generation as well.
Let's explore this a bit deeper now then. So let's actually look at the trends that are shaping ancillary revenue generation. So what is Ennismore exploring at the moment, and how are you implementing these creative ancillary revenue streams across the portfolio?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, beyond, I suppose, what we view as kind of a baseline of an enticing F&B offering, which ultimately Ennismore is famed for. The vast majority of the guests that go to our F&B are locals, and a really healthy chunk of our revenue generation already comes from an F&B perspective, which is quite unusual in the hospitality space, but obviously becoming more and more standard in the lifestyle sector specifically. We have also created new business models. So whether that is through the launch of Working From, for example, which is a dedicated co-working brand that's integrated within our hotels. I'm sure many of you have seen people working from the lobby of the Hoxton. Well, now we actually have our own co-working brand that is based, for example, in London, in Southwark, in Chicago, in Brussels, and just most recently in Dubai. And then something probably which I will talk a little bit more about today is, as I mentioned, our very own travel and food membership, Disloyalty. As I kind of touched upon earlier, Disloyalty really is ultimately it's a paid for membership, right? And but I think from a brand perspective, it's all about challenging the perception of routine and really incentivizing exploration through simplicity and ultimately transparency. Now, I'm sure many people on the call, they probably have their own loyalty programs. We expressly do not call ourselves a loyalty program because unlike traditional models that really are only about emphasizing repeat visits, we are looking to encourage our members to try something new by giving them those bigger incentives for whether it's a just opened hotel where you get 50% off for the first 3 months, or every first time stay at one of our hotels, you get 20% off. So it's not about earning points and waiting for rewards. Ultimately, our members gain instant access to those benefits from the moment they sign up, which again goes back to what I was saying earlier in terms of actually it's the people, it's our guests who are driving this and have driven the way that we've specifically approached this. Crucially, also there are no complicated terms or conditions or blackout dates, right? It's really listening to what our guests are looking for and seeing how we can provide that for them. That is an annual subscription, to be clear. It can be paid up front or monthly. And ultimately, that's what provides recurring revenue for us across 4 different currencies. So sterling, dollars, euros, and dirham, as well as crucially driving more direct hotel bookings, which also helps our owners and helps our business model. I think one thing just to round it out on that front in terms of how we've been exploring it and the success that we've seen is actually Disloyalty members are already booking further in advance, they're staying for longer, and even despite the discount are actually spending more since our launch in summer 2023. So there are a couple of different aspects in which Disloyalty is able to produce additional revenue streams for the business.
I remember covering the launch of Disloyalty, and it was one of those when you kind of take a step back and you think, damn, I can't believe this hasn't been done before. It was a brilliant initiative, and I think we talked lightly about the incremental spend that that's generated not just from the subscription base, but the instant gratification of the discounts.
Exactly.
I want to lean on the tech side for a moment.
Yes.
We've just heard from Matthew about AI and how AI can help to drive those real-time revenue generation opportunities. From your perspective, Andrew, what emerging technologies do you think could help revolutionize this space?
I mean, I think, ultimately for Ennismore specifically, thinking about as we continue to expand at scale, we have more than 15 new openings that come every single year, and more and more brands that join the collective. I think that's coupled with the fact that there are ever increasing demands and ultimately expectations from our guests that we mentioned, right? For example, we did recently launch our members only mobile app on Android and Apple, which is not necessarily emerging, but because they are constantly innovating, we're able to make use of native features and ultimately provide a more polished experience, I suppose, for our members, right? So whether that is you're more, you may think from a standard perspective, push notifications to drive more locals engagements, through to geolocation of finding out what's near you when you land in a new city, and ultimately more and more personalization. I think also as we start to look further into how we can bring both the soft and the hardware together, because I think crucially, when we think about hospitality, you have to bear in mind the operational realities of, quite a lot of technology quite often relies on hardware upgrades as well, right? So bringing those together in our properties and out of property, whether that is, keyless entry, online check-in, in-property messaging, these are all things that are currently in progress, utilizing technologies like biometrics, etc. And absolutely, as we were just talking about before, from an AI perspective, there's absolutely a role that AI can and should play for our guests to be able to enhance their journey from a front-facing perspective, but also in the back end as well, to be able to ensure there are more efficiencies, that we're minding the gap, as was mentioned earlier. But I would, I suppose, just flag that we always have to balance this, and I don't think that it was being suggested earlier that we wholeheartedly just throw everything into AI, because ultimately I think we need to be cognizant that there can be quite often some negative experiences with something which is emerging. And ultimately, I think there are lots of people who actually crave human interactions. We are, after all, an industry driven by people, as I said earlier. And, I think it's about finding that balance of there'll be certain elements and certain individuals that will want things to be done, without the need to talk to someone on our front desk, for example. But then at the same time, there will be others who actually really crave that, and they want to get that insider information, being in the heart of a city, for example, which is super important.
Brilliant. Thank you for that very concise summary, Andrew. And again, always keeping my eye on Ennismore as to what may come next. I'm going to build on that, and we're going to explore the topic of personalization, or at least the trend personalization will certainly play into trend number 3. So I'm going to be welcoming Sally to the webinar, and now we are going to be talking about attribute-based marketing. Sally, welcome, and can you please introduce yourself?
Hi Eloise. Hi everyone. I'm Sally. I'm the Group Sales and Marketing Manager for the Calcot Collection, looking after 3 properties, 2 in the Cotswolds, Calcot Spa and the Painswick, and the Lord Crewe Arms up in Northumberland. So I've been working for the company for about 13 years now, so still learning.
And we're certainly going to learn a lot right now, because attribute-based marketing, from what I understand, is still in its relatively early stages, and there are some tech companies now coming through to support this need. How are you utilizing attribute-based marketing at the Calcot Collection, and what's the ROI?
We're starting slowly. We're learning. we're in the early stages of integrating ABM into the overall strategy for the hotels. And to start with, we really looked at, with the help of Journey, who we work with as a technology and a digital marketing agency, we started to look at hotels individually and looking at the guests that come and stay and their attributes and what they want from a stay when they go and stay at the Lord Crew Arms or come to Calcot. So we looked at bespoke experience packages that align with certain guest personas. So for example, at Calcot, it's very much a family-friendly hotel. So we looked at the family getaways. We have a certain amount of people that come with dogs at the Lord Crew Arms. So we were looking at the persona is the dog friendly, the dog parent, the people that just want to hang out with their dogs and go for dog walks and things. So it's really looking at those types of guests that are coming to stay at the hotels predominantly and really talking to them. So curating a unique experience that resonates with those audience segments. So trying not to do everything for everyone, but trying to really home in on that. So with Journey helping us and guiding us, we've targeted these personas specifically, knowing that they are the type of people that like our properties. And then we've looked at data-driven campaigns and Google campaigns specifically with those personas in mind. So very, very targeted. And we've seen a real uplift in engagement, in conversion. And you know, this is really early stages, but we're looking at return on ad spend at 30 to 1, which is phenomenal, actually. So you know, we're still, as I say, we're still learning, but that's the way we're starting to do it, and we can see that it's working. People want to be spoken to and to be marketed to. It feels more personal. It's you know, it's knowing your guest.
I'm a firm believer that guests of today and tomorrow would be happy to part ways with their data if they know that they are going to receive a highly personalized and curated experience as a result of that. On the tech front, Sally, what were you looking for from your partner, and how do you see that landscape evolving? So what advancements will be needed to support future ambitions of rolling out ABM?
Yeah, I mean, we worked with Journey for a while now, and we love their flexibility and we use their expertise. They're instrumental in pushing us in the right direction and helping us get a deeper understanding of our customers and our guests and what they want. And you know, Journey deal with a lot of high-end brands, so we trust them completely. So they've really the problem is in hospitality, the technology side of it, there's so many bolt-ons. So we have PMS systems that then link to the websites or don't link to the websites, and then we have booking engine bits to bolt on, and then we have a CRM system and we have an email marketing system. We've got a little way to go to catch up with the retail industry and the fact that, you know, everything needs to talk to each other, and we definitely have a way to go to get that integration, that sort of seamless method of everything talking to each other. So I think we need everything to be a bit more intuitive. So I think it's coming, but it's not quite there yet. But Journey is certainly guiding us, and we're making progress all the time in that.
Let's build on the progress in the future now, and let's sort of cast our thoughts to the future to explore the potential. So when the systems are up and running and they are more intuitive, what potential do you think attribute-based marketing is going to have on hotel sales, in terms of how that is going to shape such things as KPIs? We heard RevPAG mentioned earlier today.
I love that. I wrote that down because we've been talking about that earlier, because I think the ABM is just going to completely redefine traditional KPIs and those loyalty metrics. So certainly we look at the sales funnel slightly differently now, because if you're really going after those personas, the conversion's quicker. We're seeing that conversion's much quicker, and actually that loyalty as well, and you know, and the brand strength as well. If people will keep coming back to you, if they understand that you understand them, so it's not just about selling rooms anymore. So I really liked it when Matty said, you know, it's not just about selling a room, it's about revenue per available guest and what they want, and really tailoring to what the guest wants. So I think we'll be looking at we'll be looking at that loyalty and that tailoring, and not looking so much at just have we sold all the rooms. It's going to be very much about what else have we sold to the guests, what they want, whether it's spa experience, whether it's children's amenities, you know, whether it's dog friendly rooms with a dog bowl and treats and things, and it's, you know, happy guest, happy dog. You know, it's changing those KPIs completely, but you know, and increasing our conversion rates and that loyalty and the brand loyalty, which is so important.
It's certainly going to maybe help identify the untapped potential, and help us understand or identify.
And it keeps us competitive as well. You know, we're in a very competitive market at this end of hospitality, so it keeps us competitive, innovative, but actually ultimately guest centric as well.
Thank you, Sally. I'm going to once again build on a couple of points that you made, because we talked about children's amenities, we talked about family travel, and trend 4, we're going to be talking all about luxury family travel. Alicia, welcome to the webinar. Could you please introduce yourself briefly?
Sure. So I'm Alicia. I'm a founder of a new consultancy called Wanderland. We are really focused on the kids and teens experience at hotels, particularly city hotels. And in the past couple of weeks, we also co-authored and released the first global kids hospitality report. So really looking at the hospitality industry and also the kids industries, and looking at the intersection between those two industries, which we'll talk a bit more about in a minute.
I've been to a lot of events in the past 2 or 3 months, and something or a key topic that keeps coming up is family travel, how much that demographic of traveller has grown in the last few years. So you mentioned the report, Alicia. Could you please share some of the key findings from that report?
Sure, it's a 100-page report, so there is a lot there, and there's an executive summary which is 30 pages, which is available on our website, which is kidshospitality.org. So it's well worth having a read of it. But what we found when writing the report is that family travel is one of the fastest growing segments of the industry, compared to other forms of leisure travel and other segments. We know that families are a really valuable customer segment. They typically stay for longer, they take more rooms, they take bigger rooms, they probably make more use of hotel facilities like F&B outlets. And what we're also doing is looking in a bit more detail at what a family looks like. So not just kind of grouping together a family as a whole, but we're really drilling down into who are the individuals in a family, obviously looking at kids and teens in particular, and looking at their needs and interests and also their influence. So what we also learned in the report is kids and teens are highly influential when it comes to family decision making for their holidays and their travel. We know that 77% of parents are influenced by their children when it comes to making travel decisions. We also know that 65% of families intend on taking city vacations as opposed to other destinations and resorts. And I think we often think of families as being very resort driven. They like to go to kind of beach destinations with the kids clubs and all the facilities that a resort has to offer. And actually, families are very interested in going to urban destinations and cities, and teens especially are. And I think what we have found in the work that we've been doing in our consultancy and also in writing the report is that kids are very, very powerful in the family. They spend a lot of family money. Parents are willing to spend a lot of money on them. And whereas resorts are doing a pretty good job of meeting the kids and the teens' needs, when it comes to urban locations and city hotels, there's a real drop-off in what hotels are doing for kids and teens. And listening to what Matthew was saying earlier about leaving revenue on the table, we've really thought about that when it comes to families and kids and teens, because hotels are just not offering families, a chance to spend money when they are actually eager and willing to do so to improve the holiday and the time that families can spend together. So those are kind of some of the highlights from the report.
Can you build on the opportunities for these luxury hotels to better accommodate family travel, especially when it comes to that revenue that's been left on the table? How can they improve the commercial aspects?
Yeah, so our background is actually as game designers and toy inventors, and so we really come from the world of kids. And the kids economy is worth $850 billion. It's a massive set of industries: video gaming, games, toys, publishing, media. And there is a segment of that money that could be borrowed and taken from by the hospitality industry. So when you think about, how kids spend time and how they spend money, there are weeks every year where families are on holiday or in a hotel setting where parents are all the more willing to spend money on the kids. And additionally, when you think about, let's say, a teen's pocket money allowance, they might have when you're looking at the luxury segment, these are individuals that have hundreds of dollars at their disposal over a week or 2 week long holiday. So there's a huge kind of pot of money that's sort of waiting there to be spent if only hotels can capitalize on how to extract it from them and how to offer things for them. So this is a really interesting area to explore, which is how do we learn from the kids industries, from gamification, from loyalty, from collectibles, from the idea of staggering a journey through a game or, let's say a movie franchise, which are all things that kids and teens are used to doing. And how can we bring some of those tools and tricks to the hospitality industry, which does a few things. First of all, it entertains and enhances the experience for kids and families. It delivers recognizable and loved characters, brands, modes of play to families. And it's a real opportunity to unlock additional revenue for hotels, because we know that these families are willing to spend the money if only they have the channels to do so.
Could you also elaborate on the actual offering that gamification was an example earlier, but what are the creative amenities or services that you've seen that has worked really well, that has engaged this sort of younger demographic? And I think you mentioned it's the teens and the tweens demographic of the younger generation that tends to be missed at times.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, and obviously we're kind of new to the industry, so our knowledge isn't exhaustive, but I'm yet to find an example of a city hotel that is really wowing kids and teens in a differentiated way. As I said, obviously resorts have 7 swimming pools and a kids club, and it's kind of a whole different world. But when you look at London, Paris, New York, you know, these kind of prominent gateway cities, we have seen that hotels tend to rely on a handful of tried and tested and traditional modes of interacting with or serving younger guests. So it's the teddy bear, it's a colouring book, it might be a tent in the room. And all the hotels seem to follow this same kind of roster of amenities or gift giving. And what we have also understood is when it comes to the adult experience, what hotels are doing is meticulous. It's at the highest level of luxury and detail. And then when it comes to kids and especially teens, there's this real drop off in imagination and attention. And actually, it's relatively easy to win over this customer segment. You know, these are kids and teens that are kind of quite excited when you give them a toy that they might not have seen or a little activity pack that contains something unusual and different. And it's also, in the grand scheme of things, extremely inexpensive to do this. So rather than having to bring in a Michelin star chef or renovate the lobby every few years, having a few amenities, gifts, products, interactions on hand available can totally transform the experience for the kids and the families. And you mentioned especially teens, where there is a real lack of attention given to that segment. And in the meantime, these are extremely powerful players. They are highly socially connected, and they are about to become travelers and decision makers in their own right. So whilst many a hotel will have a teddy bear to give a child, the 14-year-old boy is sort of left there thinking, you know, what am I going to do with a teddy bear if I even get handed one? So there's a real opportunity for hotels or hotel groups to kind of corner that market and say, when we win over teens, we're building lifetime loyalty across generations, across properties, that is really meaningful.
Thanks for that, Alicia. And I'm going to add that if there is any hotelier that's either tuning in live or maybe watching the replay afterwards, and you believe that you are offering something that is incredibly creative and innovative within this place, please do get in touch. I'm curious to learn more about what's out there and perhaps how the industry is going to evolve. Thank you, Alicia, for your time. That was fantastic. Our final trend for today is quite a deep one. It certainly wraps up a lot of the key trends that we have been talking about today, especially when it comes to AI. We are going to be diving into cybersecurity. James, welcome to the webinar. Could you please introduce yourself?
Hi there, Louise. Yeah, I'm James. I head up the sales team at ThreatSpike Labs. So we're a cybersecurity company who work with a ton of hospitality companies as well as hotels, but also hotel management companies. And as a result, we have been defending them from the cyber attacks that have been occurring over the last decade.
Could you kick off, James, with an overview of how the cyber threat landscape is evolving, and share some insight as to what are the new challenges that are now emerging for hospitality?
Well, I think a big problem with hospitality comes back to people and culture, right? So there is a culture within hospitality to serve, right from the front desk, right through the whole organization. People want ease of access for their customers, but that creates an inherent problem when it comes to security. You know, if you are letting anyone and everyone in through any door, then it creates a problem from a security perspective. The threat landscape has evolved quite significantly, whereas in the past we'd see phishing emails which were quite basic in nature and with a bit of user training fairly easy to spot. We're now seeing things like AI powered dynamic phishing. So what that means is instead of just a phishing email being sent and then someone perhaps replying and then nothing happening, AI engines are now powering those phishing emails, so responses will be sent, and not only responses will be sent, but they'll also learn about what's been replied to them so that the reply is more difficult to detect. As well as that, we're seeing things like deepfakes. So do you know that it's actually James Irving speaking to you today? It could be a deepfake of myself. And that's something that we're seeing through AI impersonation. But we're also seeing middle methods. So Teams, for example, threat actors are utilizing Microsoft Teams to get in touch perhaps with the CEO or the CFO and impersonate that they will be someone else and requesting credentials and information. But also, hospitality uses platforms like booking.com a lot. Now, last year in 2023, there was a major cyber attack via booking.com where credentials were actually being exchanged and attacks were happening before customers were getting to hotel websites. So an example of that would be, you know, when you're booking a hotel and it asks you to prove you're not a robot and select the number of traffic lights or whatever it might be. Well, actually, threat actors were intercepting that, asking people to bring up the run bar on their computer where you press Windows and R and it brings up the run command, and then asking them to press Control V, i.e. paste, and they'd already made sure that something was copied to the clipboard, which was executable code, which would then present a malware attack. So the threats are quite significant. They're evolving they're becoming more sophisticated at a high level. But it's that problem around people and culture within hospitality that makes it such an easy attack vector for the attackers out there.
Could you please, for those that might not understand the maybe the gravity or the extent as to what could happen if things do go wrong, what are the potential consequences of a cyber attack on a hotel specifically? And do you have any advice or maybe some tips to share around what to look out for, especially if things are becoming more sophisticated?
Sure, yeah. So reputational damage is a huge one. You know, if a cyber attack does occur, then there's a protocol that organizations need to follow in that they need to report attacks to the Information Commissioner's Office. There is a significant process with that where law enforcement becomes involved and reports need to be written. There are significant fines that need to be paid that are enforced by the ICO, but also a loss of revenue. From that reputational damage, they're going to see a reduction in the number of bookings. I mean, why would you book with a customer, a hotel where you may see your data get exposed to the wider world when you know that another hotel, they are much more secure to book with? But there's also, that leads around to erosion of customer trust, essentially, in that brand in particular. So there's significant effects, both financial, reputational, but also time it takes to respond to these cyber incidents for the whole staff within the hotel itself. What was the second part of your question? Sorry.
The red flags. What red flags should hoteliers be looking out for?
I think when you are seeing something out of the ordinary, for sure. But that's quite hard for hotels to actually manage internally. You know, IT staff and information security staff are very, very stretched in terms of their resources. So it's important to have support on hand from external companies so that you can actually be alerted to these attacks happening in real time and have them responded to in real time on your behalf as well.
So what steps could hoteliers take now to protect their systems and data? Like, what are those essentials that are needed?
Well, if you were running a physical premises, like a nightclub, for example, you'd want to ensure that you did simulated robberies on that premises. You'd want to know, are there any open windows on the ground floor? Are there any doors that don't have alarms? Are there any people that aren't doing their job properly and aren't making sure that bad people aren't coming in? Well, it's the same with cybersecurity as it is with physical security. You want to run ethical simulations of attacks to ensure that the weak links are covered up and that there aren't any glaring holes within your security posture. That's what we call in the industry ethical hacking or penetration testing. So that's a big part of it. Also, it's not just limited to physical security. You want to be doing checks so that people who are dressed up as builders, electricians, or certain members of staff aren't just allowed access into the network rooms, for example, and things of this nature. That's what we call full-blown attack simulation or red team exercises. It's also important to map out the actual attack surface. If you don't know what areas of your organization can actually be attacked, then how can you go about drawing up defensive mechanisms? So that's important. I think we've seen a significant trend around phishing emails with hotels. So the booking.com attacks, the Teams attacks. So it's important to simulate those sorts of attacks, understand which members of your organization actually are the weak links, are the ones who are clicking on these emails, these messages, etc., and then attribute training to those people. But human beings are not perfect, right? We all know that. So it's important, as well as phishing simulation, it's important to have defensive mechanisms around your email systems. And that's what we call an email gateway, where all emails that come into your organization are actually analyzed and then quarantined if they need to be. With that dual defensive mechanism of training the people, simulating attacks, but also having a gateway in place, you should significantly see the reduction in the amount of attacks that are coming through, but also if an attack does come through, then the impact of such attack massively reduced as well.
And finally, James, I'm just curious, you've mentioned various examples of what a cyber attack could look like. As someone who lives and breathes the space, where do you think the greatest threat comes from? Is it within the phishing emails? Like if there was a hotelier listening to this and they're thinking, oh my goodness, I have a lot that I might need to focus on. If you could, one area, is it the phishing? Is it the, what do you think is the biggest threat and how that might move forward or evolve?
As you've probably seen in the news, this is big business nowadays for the threat actors out there. Whereas in the past, it was what we called script kiddies, you know, someone in their bedroom running these attacks. Often some of these attacks now are nation state led. So there's a lot of money behind these attacks. What that means is they will constantly evolve and find new ways. Recent trends have definitely been around the phishing side, booking.com and areas like this. But prior to that, it was ransomware. And the threat actors will constantly evolve. It's important not to just focus on one type of threat, but do an exercise that we here at ThreatSpike call threat modeling, where we actually look at what threats are actually going to be present for an organization of your type. And given we work with so many hospitality companies, we have good intelligence on that, and then start to map out security controls, almost if you think about security controls like layers of an onion around your key data assets so that it's harder for the threat actors. The positive side to this is that there is a lack of security in place across so many different industries that if you just have a good level of security hygiene in place, often the threat actors will move on to an easier target.
Thanks, James. Certainly lots to take note of there. And I'm going to thank you for your contributions. What we are going to do is leave this webinar open for an extra 2 minutes right at the end, because all the LinkedIn profiles of our speakers have been popped into the chat. I do encourage anybody that is listening to carry on these conversations and connect with our speakers, because there was a lot to get through today. I just have some closing slides to run through before I say a final goodbye. On your screens now is a schedule of what our 2025 webinars look like. We have, in fact, a whole dedicated webinar all about cybersecurity, and we're going to be drilling into that more in the new year. But to flag the first episode back in January, it forms part of our sustainability series, and that will be on our next slide, please. A webinar about sustainable procurement and supply chain management that's taking place on January the 20th. The link to register has been popped into the chat. And aside from our digital events such as these webinars, we're excited to be in Porto early next year for our annual Recharge event. It's a staple for us in the diary every year because we love hosting this event. It's a fantastic opportunity for you to really understand and explore the local projects and upcoming developments within the area. And the agenda is a varied mix of presentations, panel discussions, and workshops, so incredibly interactive. You can find further details about the agenda and links, tickets to purchase also in the chat there. And one very exciting event taking place next year on May the 13th is the 10th edition of the Serviced Apartment Awards. Entries are now open, and why I am flagging this to our hotelier audience is that for the 10th annual edition of the awards, we have decided to introduce a new category. This category is the best hotel with serviced apartments or branded residences. So you can start your entries now. Again, all the links have been popped into the chat for you to explore more. And if you're interested in working with us across our in real life or digital events, please do get in touch with my colleague Katie. Her details are on your screens and also into the chat. So all that's left for me to do is to say thank you to our fantastic speakers today, all 5 of them, for taking the time to share their thoughts on our 5 trends. Huge thank you to Agilysys, fantastic partners throughout the year, and more to come in 2025. Take care, hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoons, and I look forward to seeing you once again in the new year. Bye.
Hello, we are international.